Lush. No, not a cosmetic store that you see in shopping malls and high streets, but the 4AD legends, a four-piece band formed in the late 80s, Miki Berenyi and Emma Anderson being the main members. We are celebrating 30 years of Lush's second album, Split, released on the 13th of June 1994. This was only their second album, and they had been around for quite a long time, but it took them a while to be signed by Ivor Watts Russell when he turned up at a gig that featured both Pale Saints and Lush, and he signed them both on the same night. Split really lives up to its name. It is really a split between a Britpop kind of sound with punky tracks that are reminiscent of bands of the time like Elastica on a song like Hypocrite, but also their shoegaze and dream pop roots remain in songs in the latter half of the album, such as Starlust, Lit Up, Undertow, When I Die, Never Never. So yes, as well as being a split between genres, this is also a split between Miki and Emma, the two songwriters of the band. Two frontwomen, both playing guitar. Now this album was produced by really two of the biggest guys in production in the UK, at least in that period of the 80s and 90s, and that was Mike Hedges, who produced it, and he had previously worked on The Cure with their Faith album, Sushi and the Banshees, and later went on to become Manic Street Preachers' producer in the mid to late 90s with their more Britpop mainstream releases, Everything Must Go and the other one, This Is Your Truth, This Is Our Truth, Tell Me Yours. And they had Alan Moulder mixing. Obviously, look at that list of credits right there. I've made a big list of credits, and you've got Curve, you've got Ride, you've got My Bloody Valentine, 9 Inch Nails, very dense kind of works. And yeah, to have those two on board, Mike Hedges and Alan Moulder, means that really this is already a special album just by looking at the credits. My favourite track is Starlust, which comes in later in the album, track 11, so the penultimate track, and that's my favourite, really as shoegaze as you would want it to be. Lots of tremolo guitar, so lots of the volume being cut off and on again in the verse, and then you have a very thick distortion sound with reverb placed before distortion by the sounds of it to get that real washy sound. And there's an incredible Glastonbury performance of that song, which you can find on YouTube, Glastonbury 1994. And I got the Lush chorus box set, which features the whole discography, featuring B-sides and acoustic sessions, among other things like demos. And yeah, got it signed by Miki, and I've been privileged to have met her on two separate occasions. One after a Piroshka gig in 2019 in Bristol, the Rough Trade building, and she likes to keep her setup quite simple, actually. I mean, it's all Boss pedals. It's all Boss. She did have the BF2 flanger in her pedal board when I saw Lush on their final ever gig in Manchester in 2016. the BF2 was on the board, but since Piroshka and the Miki Berenyi Trio, which is her latest project, the Miki Berenyi Trio, she has taken that off the board. Obviously there's a chorus on there, and yeah, my second occasion meeting her was in Devon, Newton Abbot, between Newton Abbot and Dartington. There was a Miki Berenyi Trio gig, and yeah, she signed my Scar vinyl, and the chorus one as well as the Sweetness and Light vinyl. So I was really, really chuffed with that. Emma Anderson, I think, when I did that Mount Rushmore video of my top 4 guitarists, well, if Mount Rushmore had a 5th place, then I would probably offer it to Emma Anderson. I think many people have echoed this. The ones who really know that their stuff do echo that she is an amazing player. Really great with effects, really great. She had the Roland GP16 unit, and she actually inspired me, as well as Ride and Pale Saints with Graham Naismith. She really inspired me to get that unit, as well as the foot controller for it and the expression pedal. And she inspired me to get a Fender Jaguar in a gold colour with the gold body. And yeah, so it's really nice to be inspired by a woman, not just a man. Normally everyone looks to a male and that to be their role model, but I actually looked at Emma in terms of getting the Fender Jaguar. That was from the Nothing Natural video, which is not on this album, but it's on Spooky, which was produced by Robin Guthrie. And it's just incredible, isn't it? I mean, their debut album produced by the great Robin Guthrie from the Cocteau Twins, who has a stellar solo career and a stellar producer career as well in terms of production. And then for the second album, they only go and get Mike Hedges and Alan Moulder. So these guys, just like Ride, they have worked with the best people. Ride works with John Leckie as well. So if Lush works with John Leckie, they would have the complete set of a lot of my production heroes. So yeah, there's a GP16. So this album, yeah, Desire Lines is really probably the most famous single from this album. Really melancholic, the way it builds up to the real noisy part where it's like a big cathartic release. And it's a great example of Emma Anderson's pick everything kind of approach that she has to guitar. So rather than using legato where it's all hammer-ons and pull-offs, and legato meaning smooth in Italian, she has this approach where she picks every note, and I actually think that makes her stand out, and it doesn't make her less of a player by doing that. It really actually ensured that she had a signature sound. And I really like her Fender Telecaster Deluxe 72. So yeah, as you can see, Vaughan Oliver did the artwork. Envelope 23, the company that worked, basically was like 4AD's kind of art sector, pretty much. And Vaughan Oliver and Nigel Grierson, Chris Bigg, these guys just created the most unusual abstract artwork that is just phenomenally beautiful at the same time, and just really curious, just makes you really curious to what they're trying to convey. Just really intriguing artwork. And they recorded at Rockfield in Wales, Rockfield Studios, one of the major studios in the UK. And then they mixed in France in Mike Hedges' studio, which was in a remote part of France. And apparently Miki Berenyi in an interview said that it was horrendous sessions. Everything took longer than it should, and Mike Hedges was kind of losing patience and losing interest in the whole project. They just couldn't mix it right. They got someone called Ian Grimble to mix it, and it just sounded really thin, like a demo like version of what they wanted. And in the end, it went into Alan Moulder's hands in London, which, you couldn't really go to a better pair of hands, really, could it? Because Alan Moulder at that point was on fire. He had just done Going Blank Again in 92, and then Curve the same year, and then Cuckoo in 93, and then Swerve Drive and Mezcal Head also in that year. And, the Downward Spiral he did in 94, and Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream, he mixed that in 93. So, this was like prime time for Alan Moulder, so no wonder why that guy got it so right in the end. That was when he was really on top form. So yeah, Phil King was a new member on this album. Previously, they had Steve Rippon on bass guitar, and after Spooky, after their early EPs, he left, and Phil King was on bass for Split and their final album, Love Life, the following year. And to be honest, it really didn't change the sound of the band by having a new bassist. Probably because Miki and Emma really laid down the foundation, really, for what we know as the Lush sound. Chris Ackland, rest in peace. Such a massive shame that the band folded after his suicide in 1996, which is absolutely dreadful. And I don't think the band has recovered since, even though when they reformed in 2015 and 16, I still think they were hurting quite a lot. And I believe it was probably a big reason why they didn't carry on and do an album. And I think there was just a bit of guilt and a bit of like beef, I think, between members who they were trying to respect Chris Ackland, but it all became too emotional for them. I think that was a big part in why their reunion didn't last long. I guess there was a lot of emotion surrounding the whole thing. But still, I'm glad I went to that Manchester gig, which happened to be their final ever gig, and they gave Chris Ackland, if he could see that gig from up in heaven or wherever he is now, I think he would be immensely proud of what Lush did there. I think he would want them to stick around, if anything. So there's the tracks, the 12 tracks. Really incredible. Like I said, I think it's a good mix of the Britpop style and the shoegaze dream pop style. I really think it really is literally a split of songwriting and production style. Hypocrite, like I said, is like very Elastica based, like punk, like kind of punk pop kind of song that Elastica and people like Kaneki would do a bit later in the 90s. And then you've got, I think Kiss Chase is another kind of Britpoppy kind of song. It's not quite as effects laden. It's more, it's like feminine kind of messages that are actually put to the fore. So they're not being shrouded in impressionistic noise. They're not being blurred or anything. There's a lot of like feminist messages here. Like anti-rape and about independence and defiance. And I think, a big, by changing the production style to being less ethereal, it kind of made those messages more prominent. But, you still get a very big shoegaze dream pop element. They're still hanging on to it. And this is ultra late. This is 1994, Slow Dive, that they've already been slated. They're like really on their last legs, about to drop Pygmalion, which comes to no fanfare in '95. You've already got Chapter House, who's changed style with Blood Music. You've already got Carnival of Lights is already out by Ride, which is a dramatic change from the earlier stuff. My Bloody Valentine have already been kicked off Creation, after Kevin Shields had a meltdown trying to follow up Loveless, and the '93 demos and stuff didn't come to fruition until 2013, where I think most of the tracking from '93 was actually put on that album in 2013. And who else? There's so many bands that just like fell off the wagon by that time. Suede and Blur were really leading the charge by now. Everything else was being swept away. British music press just wanted nothing to do with the shoegazing thing. So, which is why I think this is such a brave album, and it's so monumental. It's a landmark album that really is the last hurrah for British shoegazing in the 90s, at least. Obviously, until like Air Formation and 93 Million Miles from the Sun arrived in the 2000s. This was really the last British shoegaze album before the Americans, they hijacked it in the mid to late 90s and created some great stuff over there. You would have to wait until like the mid 2000s until you hear a good British shoegaze album again. So this was incredibly brave effort, and the second half of the album really does it for me. Desire Lines, Invisible Man, Undertow, Never Never, Lit Up, Starlust, and When I Die. It's such a great run of songs there. Invisible Man is like this sort of post-punk, very haunting track. The sort of goth elements there, and it's please stop that screaming, please stop that screaming. Please stop that screaming. Like Miki sounds really like kind of eerie on that song. There's a real darkness to it, and the real distortion, the harsh distortion that comes in at the end is like just really makes it angry and spooky. Undertow is great. There's the remix version where they kind of like trip hopped it up, with this kind of like broken drum beat going on, and that's got again real thick distortion sounds running all the way through it. Never Never is really interesting. It's like Desire Lines Part 2 basically is the same kind of chorus guitar, and I think that's Emma Anderson's another moment for her to shine there with her lead playing all the way through. And then Lit Up is probably my second or third favourite on this album. I forgot to mention Undertow is probably my second favourite. Lit Up is my third favourite. I think that's very much in the spooky vein, with the chorus guitar all the way through. Such a great melody, and the chord changes come at like unexpected times. Real the meters and the time signatures are like that, they change and stuff. Pretty progressive. And then Starlust is my favourite track on the album. And then When I Die is it's got like strings in it, I remember. It's that's an eerie song, that's like it's got that kind of mysterious sound which replicates the message of the song, like that uncertainty of what happens at death. And I think this album's another great thing is that it's so much more dynamic than Spooky. Spooky is a great album. You got Robin Guthrie producing, mixing. But what I like about Split is that you get every side of Lush in it. So you get the early punk sound in it with like Hypocrite and Blackout, Invisible Man. But then you've also got the spooky side where it's just that, that kind of mellow chorus laden guitar, very Cocktail Twins, Robin Guthrie style in songs like Stardust, Lit Up, Love Life, etc. So I think it's a great album. It's worthy of a 30th anniversary celebration. And got some quotes here from Miki about her guitar playing and the gear that she used. So overall, I just think it's a great album, and like I said, it's a landmark, a real landmark. Thanks for listening. Lush, Split.